Hello, Mr. Patil. Good morning. How are you doing? Good morning. I want to hear from you about the book. Of course. What's going on with the book? How do you like it? I can hear keystrokes, so audio is okay. Beautiful. But can you hear me? I am live on LinkedIn as well, which is great. So, I will be sending this message. Great. Send the message to everybody. Perfect. Sounds good. So we're sorted on this particular bit. Now please tell me about the book. It's good. Now he's telling about public speaking, business writing is important. Okay. Has he come to the his illness, where he loses his ability to talk? Can you have you reached that place where he basically talks about dealing with that debility? What did you think about that part? How how was that? I mean, did that part like blow your mind a little? The whole bit of that nervous thing, right? Where the nerves get blocked. Did you get that? How was that part? And did you also read that part where he says, at one point, I didn't know how much money was there in the market, and I didn't want to do a show, and just to avoid that show, I said $100,000, like, and they said yes, let's do it. So what do you think about that? I mean, is it actually how good is that? Oh my God, it's 8:10 already. So I'll have to begin now. Let's begin. The show that we deserve. The show that we deserve. It's that good. We deserve it. Bum bum bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Thinker's Frequency. We're having such a good time. This is the peak of human civilization. We're working so hard, doing such good work for ourselves, our parents, our kids, our siblings, our husbands, our wives, our friends, everybody. Well, not other people's husbands and wives, I hope. And just when we thought things couldn't get any better, like they couldn't possibly get any better, well, they just did. Call it divine intervention, folks, but things just got a whole lot better. Now we have Thinker's Frequency, our daily mental workout, our daily dose of insights and analysis which don't lead to paralysis right before we punch in. So let's continue with our journey of reading between the lines things that are especially interesting and important in the world of business and finance. Let's go! Oh, but before we go, we gotta follow a tradition, right? You know, the tradition of the simultaneous sip. We'll all sip something together and it brings us good luck. It does that every day. It does make us lucky every day. And all you need for the simultaneous sip is a cup or mug or glass or tank, a chalice or stein, a canteen jug or flask or a vessel of any kind. Pour it with your favorite liquid. Today I'm having coffee, Humblebean coffee, right? From our very own. And here we go. It smells good. And it tastes good, of course. Beautiful. Sublime. You know what the simultaneous sip says, right? It says that you're not alone. It says that we are in this together. And that's such a beautiful thing to say. With that out of the way, let's begin. So, UK and India's FTA is finally sorted. And you know how we know that? Because Mr. Modi is going to UK. So, the final ribbon cutting, it's gonna happen soon. And it's supposed to be a very, very big deal. The Prime Minister of UK says this deal is as big as the Brexit one. So you can imagine the scale that we're talking about. It's a very important deal as well, and it has a lot of consequences. So let's connect the dots. I'm trying to be artsy here. Usually our flow gets broken a little, so there are pieces, but I'm gonna bind a lot of items together with this. Okay, so UK FTA is very important. It's at the scale of Brexit, says Mr. Starmer. It's very important for India because these kinds of bilateral trade agreements or free trade agreements, BTAs, FTAs, they actually define how the country trades. And right now, this country, our beautiful country, is at an inflection point as far as the trade relationships are considered, right? Because at this moment, India's relationship with USA is slightly dicey, although it's gonna get cleared by this month's end. However, right now it's slightly dicey, and Europe has been providing much of the cushion. And you know how Europe has been providing much of the cushion, right? You know which industry has Europe supported? An industry which is very critical to India, an industry which, uh, you know, is struggling, an industry which is not getting a lot of good news from US. Which is that industry which Europe has been supporting, but not US so much? It is the $280 billion IT industry, right? And IT. Mr. Patel, you're right, 100%. So IT industry is getting a lot of trade from Europe, and this bilateral trade agreement is going to be a step in that direction. So Europe, UK, which was a part of the Euro, but it's now, it holds separate trade agreements. Europe, this is going to be very, very important for this country because, as we know, US is now a difficult trading partner, and it's going to be hard to navigate those waters. But if we could get favorable treatment from Europe, it's going to be good. Speaking of Europe and India, Infosys numbers just came out, and they are better than the other big players' numbers in IT. Definitely much better. They've shown some revenue growth. Analysts were thinking of a 2.8% revenue growth, but they've shown something like a 4.2, which is great. Their net profits have grown up 11%, even though the revenue numbers haven't grown as much. Better utilization, more productivity. That's what these people are saying. Though Infosys numbers look good because of something that not many people are talking about. And what is that thing? It's the lower base. Infosys growth has been lagging for some time, and because those growth numbers were tepid previously, this particular jump looks good in comparison. So other companies were doing well before, their deals got closed before, and now they're empty. Infosys had those things in pipeline, so now this particular thing looks good. Till US gets sorted, which is about 60%, 55-60% of what Infosys does as business. Infosys is going to be heavily reliant on Europe, which is what the case is right now. So that is about Infosys. Infosys net profit surged 8.7%, not 11%. Now the company's guidance is about 1 to 3% of growth instead of 0 to 3% of growth. So slight improvement, but what we think about IT, right? Tough times ahead. Moving on, Tata says that we've invested a lot of money. We've spent 5.5 lakh crores. 5.5 lakh crores in billions of dollars would be $60 billion, some 60 to 70 billion dollars. We've spent $70 billion to be future fit, and we've tripled our profits in the last 5 years. So we've tripled our profits in the last 5 years, and more than market cap as well. So just as Reliance said that in the next 5 to 7 years we'll be looking at doubling our market cap every 5 to 7 years. That's what Mr. Ambani said. So Mr. Chandrasekhar has said that we've tripled our net profits and our market cap in the last 5 years, and we're looking good. I've got a comment on LinkedIn. Hello, Mr. Mini Shashi Tharoor. Mini Shashi Tharoor. And Mr. Paramjeet Olan says cars as well. He's right. The car market, of course, is heavily reliant on Europe, especially now. And there's a news in that area as well. Renault is upsourcing, is basically investing more in India. And it says it's gonna invest in Indian parts and Indian supply chain, not just to serve the global demand, but also the local demand. So it's gonna go heavy on India, and that's again something to do with how India and Europe are dealing with right now. That says a lot of cross-border payments are also in conversation. PayPal is the company which processes a lot of cross-border transactions, and the chief of PayPal has an interview. It's like a PR piece where he says that UPI is a great mechanism, but it's a local mechanism, and we want to play a bigger role in the global mechanism. So that's a sales pitch. Nothing new, nothing big, easy to understand. Moving on, what is easy to understand but is not exactly a good news is what has happened ever since Mr. Jaishankar went to China. So you remember Mr. Jaishankar met Mr. Mr. Wang, his counterpart in China, a few days ago. And we were all tracking how that's going to work out for India, right? We wanted to see how that works out for India. Turns out that China has another good news to share. After 5 years, Chinese tourist visas will be allowed in India. So Chinese tourist visa to get a better hold in India, with restrictions, of course, with some watch play. India has allowed the Chinese tourist visa. Now we've talked at Thinkers Frequency how MSS, the largest and the richest and the most technologically advanced intelligence agency of the world, the Chinese intelligence agency. Whenever we talk about intelligence agencies, we talk about CIA, we talk about Mossad, we talk about all these guys, Interpol, we know RAW, we know ISI. We've never heard about MSA, That's how good MSA is. Because it's so good as an intelligence agency that Bollywood, Hollywood, European cinema, pop culture doesn't even know anything about MSS. But it runs at a $20 billion budget. And that too in China. When United States CIA runs at a $17.5 billion budget. In US, why I mention US and China like that is because $17.5 billion, $20 billion or 17.5 in PPP terms in China is like $40 billion. So essentially Chinese MSS budget in PPP terms is almost double that of CIA. And they have the most number of people, most technologically advanced people. So Chinese intelligence agency is just like extraordinary, largest. And CIA doesn't even come close. Yet nobody knows about it, except for viewers of Thinkers Frequency, because we've discussed this in depth, right? So now with the renewed tourist visas to Chinese people, we're going to see some action on that front. But India says we're going to have some sort of watch on those people, restrictions, and so on and so forth. A very interesting case which people don't know about is Mr. Hariom Rai, the chief managing director of Lava Phones. He was essentially booked by our legal authorities for for being an agent of Chinese. So he got booked under Espionage Act, where he was basically being an agent for all the Chinese companies, leaking their secrets, leaking India's strategic secrets, and so on and so forth. So then Lava's IPO also got shelved, and since then the company has sort of gone, just strictly business. But anyway, that was one of the things. Let's see. As of now, India doesn't seem to have gotten anything from China. Not anything, not at all. Apart from one thing. we know what India got from China, don't we? Viewers of Thinkers Frequency, as of now, what has India got from China ever since we met, Mr. Jaishankar met? I track this news every day. I just hope something good happens from China. But there's just one thing which is happening from China. What is that thing? I'll give you a pause till I take a sip. Nice. Kadi Ninda. Kadi Ninda. Kadi Ninda. Mr. Tiwari, Mr. Patil. We've only got Kadi Ninda, by the way. Right now, till now, we only have Kadi Ninda. So maybe we get something more than Kadi Ninda, because in September, Modi ji goes to China. So if that is happening, you need to have something more than Kadi Ninda, man. Otherwise, what is your leverage, you know? Anyway, speaking of Kadi Ninda, India has done a lot of Kadi Ninda of Pakistan at United Nations forums. Say, Pak, a serial borrower from IMF, steeped in terrorism. I don't understand the value of these bullshit words. You know, what do we accomplish by this? You know, what do we get out of like sending our foreign diplomats and all of these high profile bureaucrats to forums like United Nations, and doing this Kadi Ninda? Does this help? Apart from posturing, does this have any value? I don't see that value, but we've done a lot of Kadi Ninda. Indian subcontinent offers stark contrast in terms of progress development models. P. Harish must be one of the, diplomats there. But, when it comes to social media, these videos get viral. Oh, that this Indian diplomat lady spoke so well at the conference, and उन्होंने पाकिस्तान को अपनी औकात दिखा दी, उनकी औकात दिख, and I'm like, क्या है ये सब? What are we talking about? What are we just, this is, anyway. Moving on. Gold has risen again, 1 lakh rupees. So jewelers are fearing lackluster sales. And jewelers are talking about what we discussed a few days ago, which was, do you remember what we discussed about as far as gold prices going up and government coming up with big norms, and government coming up with a big news for the gold industry? Do you remember that? It was the hallmarking of the 9 carat. So hallmarking of the 9 carat. Now with gold touching 1 lakh and silver 9 carat hallmarking, Mr. Patil, you're so right. Silver touching 4.5. What jewelers are hoping for is that 18, 14 and 9 carat gold picks up, because next month we have Raksha Bandhan, and then the festive season, right? The festive season comes, which is most important for us. So they hope that the hallmarking thing of the 9 carat actually leads to some 9 carat sales. Otherwise, it's gonna be a bit of a problem. Why is gold going up? Gold is going up because everybody is stacking gold, right? Chinese Reserve Bank, all reserve banks are stacking gold. So, all reserve banks stacking gold. Does that mean that they know something about the global economy that we don't? Does that mean that they fear that something wrong is going to happen geopolitically, even though things are sort of stabilizing right now? That's a very good question to ask. Always a good question to ask, right? Moving on. IndusInd Bank Board okays 30,000 fundraise. 30,000 crore rupees going to be raised by IndusInd Bank. The promoters of IndusInd Bank, the Hindujas, they said that it's the right opportune time to buy IndusInd stocks, because IndusInd Bank got embroiled in a very big derivative scandal. Viewers of Thinkers Frequency know about that derivative scandal, don't you? You know about the derivative scandal, right? Can you remind me about what that was? We talked about this. Very difficult, very nice to understand. A huge deal which not many people even know or, can understand. So I'll take a sip. You remember, guys? Okay, I'll remind you. So what happened was that Japan had negative interest rates or zero interest rates, something like that, right? Japan has been having that for a very long time. So what the derivatives markets used to do was that they used to borrow yen, okay, and then they, on borrowing that yen, they used to have it changed with the rupee or let's say dollars, okay. And since Japanese thing didn't have any, they had negative interest rates or zero interest rates or something like that, there used to be a spread as far as these interest rates are considered, right? This rupee thing. Now, after a while, after the futures contract, they used to return that money and make the money on this interest rate rise in sort of this particular part of the hedge, right? So India has a higher interest rate, so they used to borrow yen, take change it to dollars or let's say rupees, and then make use of the rising interest rate, make money there, return to yen, and use the spread as the earnings. That was the derivatives trade that was going on quite profitably for a lot of PAP. Mr. Ankit Jindal, you're right. Japan, you're right. 100% right. Great. Forex trading by IndusInd, you were right. Mr. Patil, you're right as well. So then what happened was Japan had a shift in strategy and Japan raised its interest rates, due to which this derivative trade, which was earlier pretty profitable, it started looking bad. Okay, it started causing losses. To hide those losses, what IndusInd Bank started doing was it started reporting these trades very differently, in basically illegal way, right? And that sort of those reporting disclosures got caught, and then they had to post a 1.6 thousand crore loss and then a 2,000 crore loss in 2 quarters, right? Now, this ethical lapse of judgment also led to the firing of their CEO and a lot of brouhaha, right? So the founders said that the bank is solid and it's the right time to buy the stock, right? So that was the background on IndusInd. So they are actually moving forward with their word. They're raising money, and with this fundraise, they're going to be nominating 2 people on the board extra. By the way, IndusInd Bank founders, Hindujas, have also got a very, very nasty history. We know about that, right? Where they transported the maids and didn't pay them and blocked their passports and kept them in bunkers in Switzerland, made them work for 18 hours. They were basically trapped, those maids, and then people found out and they had a case and they lost that case, got shamed all over the world for being human traffickers essentially, right? I hope they don't sue me, right? I hope they don't send me a legal notice or something. Well, even if they do, nothing to worry. Moving on. ADB, Asian Development Bank, has trimmed the FY26 growth forecast of India from 6.7% to 6.5%. Well. That is not that good, right? That's not that good. But it is customary. So 6.5% is the projection, FY26, because of US import, whatever happens. It's good. It's good as compared to, let's say, China, which is growing at roughly 4%. Let me check the number. China is going to grow unchanged at 4.7% and 4.3% in 2026. So 4.7% in 2025, 4.3% in 2026. And South Asia essentially 5.9% from 6%. So they basically downgraded all the growth projections for South Asia, India, China, and China is gonna grow at 4.3%. But that seems like you're gonna celebrate, right? That whoa, India is growing really big, man. 6.5% against China's 4.3%. But you've got to look at the base effect. China is a $17 trillion economy, while India is a $4.2 trillion economy. So, what's 6.5% of 4 trillion? 240 billion, right? Something like that. 250 billion? Yeah, 250 billion. And what is 4.5% of 17 trillion? Uh, 680 billion, 700 billion, right? So China is still adding like 700 billion to its GDP, while we're adding about 280 some billion, right? So even at a moment of weakness or a perceived moment of weakness, China's GDP is like really, uh, you know, it's not slow at all. A lot of people have misconceptions about China and its supposed weaknesses, but I feel China is very, very strong. Moving on, Make in India plan is looking at something new, which is called transmission gear. So transmission gear is looking at some sort of Philip. Transmission gear is basically power transmission. So you have to have, of course, power generation, power transmission, power receival, right? So you generate power, you store power, you transmit power, and you receive power, right? Those are the elements to it. Until now, the power transmission play hadn't had a lot of manufacturing impetus by India. And now that is going to be looking at a Philip. So the country is looking at Make in India and PLI for power grid, and they are asking these industry bodies, PSUs, power grid, BHEL, to identify critical equipment which can be manufactured in India. Now, why do you think this is happening? Why do you think this is happening? Can you guess why India is looking at something like power transmission gear, indigenous manufacturing of it? It's a security thing. It's a security thing. It's a strategic thing. You remember what happened, right? As far as when Galwan clash happened with China, and suddenly Mumbai power went out. So India is looking at a lot of these aspects in a very strategic way because they hold security implications. Speaking of security implications, a bad news, or let's say bad news in near term for defense companies, is that government has given a norm for them to spend more on security of defense companies. So defense companies provide security to the country, but security of defense companies. So the government wants to spend them. They've set some norms for cyber security, let's say, or for actual security. They want their perimeters, the defense compounds, to be more safely guarded from an intelligence perspective, you know. Because let's say if you're spending a lot of money on defense and you're doing a lot of vehicle manufacturing and a lot of equipment manufacturing, armament manufacturing, and your cyber security is weak, and then you get hacked, and then you get screwed, right? Or let's say if your guarding is not right, and a lot of Chinese tourists start coming in, and the intelligence plays a very, very good role, then what do you do? Speaking of this is not just an India problem, by the way. What US has realized is that Chinese have bought a lot of land right beside their defense manufacturing setups. So China has been buying land right beside American defense manufacturing hotspots. How do you like that? How do you like that? And so America has been looking at Chinese land buying at a very, very critical, from a very critical perspective. Speaking of America and China and defense, there's another news, which obviously isn't here, but I read it. So Microsoft was tasked with some sort of defense contract, okay, a very important defense contract, and they had people in China working on that US very critical, very security, high clearance defense project. So Microsoft was given the task of working on this particular bit, this software bit from US security, US national defense, and they had their Chinese team working in China on that play. So at first I was like, this can't be real. This is supposed to be fake news, right? But it was indeed real. So whatever India does or whatever India feels, however unsafe India looks, from a defense perspective and China perspective, you can just count it a little higher, and that's how bad US is. So India is doing much better than US as far as maintaining its, let's say, border security, or maintaining, what's the artful way to put at it? Taming the dragon is considered, or let's say steering clear of trouble. Speaking of big things, there is a study, or there's a report which has been published by Morgan Stanley. Okay, and the report says essentially that states and union territories are gonna play key role in India's economic rise. States and union territories are gonna play a key role in India's goal of $10 trillion economy by 2035. Now, how could they have saved some money on that report? On publishing that report, can you think of a way they could have saved some money? Where if their question was that are states and union territories gonna play a critical role or a key role in India economic rise, can you think of any way some money could have saved on that report? Can you think of it? Just have a thought on how they could have saved some money on publishing this report, while doing this study. Good coffee. Mr. Tarun says, I think at this point they can also ask the viewers of Thinker's Frequency. So well said, Mr. Tarun. So Mr. Tiwari says, wire a portion of it to Nishant. Well, Mr. Tiwari is kind. Mr. Tiwari, I like you more than Mr. Tarun. I'm sorry, Mr. Tarun. They could have sent some money to me. Let's say that partner at Morgan Stanley who must be making like 3 crores a year, and all of his people, and they got like a lot of money to publish this report, and they could have come to me and I would have said, wait, save some money, please save some money, okay, and save half of it. So how much do you have parked for this report? And they would like, we were getting like 7 crores for this. 7 crores, save half of it, okay, and 3.5 crores, just give it to me. Have you sent the money? Yes. The answer is yes. States and union territories will play a key role in India's economic rise. So, and not just this, I would have added more. So the report also flagged challenges such as geographical constraints, governance issues, debt burden, and infra deficits. Now these people have really gone out of their way to provide some real insights to us, right? Look at the insights. Geographical constraints, governance issues, debt burden, and infra deficits. Now, I could have done that. What a bunch of bullshitters, man. Unbelievable. Moving on. Well, US tariffs, big beautiful bill derail Indian IT's big shift away from BFSI. As we talked about, US big beautiful bill and IT's big shift away from BFSI is not strange at all. However, again, it depends. A lot of it is being offset by euro right now, and what most people are not seeing is that tariff is only a temporary impediment in the IT story. Tariff is only the temporary impediment. The real impediment is something else. It's a structural technological shift. That is the real impediment that we don't talk about enough, right? People are just concerned about very, very near-term challenges, but a basic structural change, which is on the cards, that's not being talked about enough. Basically, nobody wants to get scared, and it's not about making people scared or anything. It's just that needs some more conversation, right? Moving on, something that people didn't see. Do you know about Good Glam Group, guys? Good Glam Group is a company that was started in India right after American Thrasio began. Okay, so Thrasio had begun, and it started raising a lot of money, and it brought a new business model to the fore called House of Brands, where a big company starts buying small businesses running on Amazon and it starts buying those businesses and then combining them and realizing a lot of efficiencies and making those businesses scale up and making a lot of money. That was the business of Thrasio. Okay, it never made sense to me, and I wrote about it in 2020-21 as well, that how is this making sense. But anyway, after Thrasio came and US and it raised a lot of money, like billions of dollars, suddenly Indian clones of Thrasio also started raising a lot of money, like billions of dollars. Mensa brands, Global Bees from First Cry, this Good Glam Group guys, and many, many more, right? They started raising billions of dollars, and I was like, this doesn't seem to be working, right? This doesn't seem to be working. What kind of efficiencies can you bring to these businesses which leads to such economic unlocking that it will make sense? And you're going to buy these businesses at a premium. And what if it slows, right? Because e-commerce is highly dependent on the distribution channel. Since you don't own the distribution channel, you are basically dependent on the platforms. And all you're doing is some back-end integration, which is not even much, right? So if you buy like a detergent brand and then you buy a toffee brand, what back-end integration can you do? Basically integrate some sort of CRM, right? But it didn't make sense. But anyway, it made sense to the VCs at that time, because applying brains by themselves is a very, very difficult task. So they just copied the US model, invested a lot of money in India, and then Thrasio went bankrupt. And then all these companies in India also went bankrupt. So it's not like Thrasio didn't work, but Indian companies work. No. So Good Clam Group was one of these companies. And they basically raised a lot of money, serious amount of money, and they bought a lot of companies. Scoop Whoop, Baby Chakra, Pop Exo, Momsco, and so on and so forth. Sirona. They bought these companies, and just 2 years later, they started selling those companies one by one because the business didn't make sense. So the founders of Sirona actually built the company, and Good Glam Group came and they bought that company for 435 crores or something. Okay, and then just a year and a half later, 2 years later, they sold that company, the same company, to founders for 150 crores. So Pradhan Mantri Venture Capital Amir Kalyan Yojana on steroids worked very well for a few people. It worked well for the founders of Good Glam Group for a while, and it's just unbelievably sad, right? Now people are gonna get fired. So Mr. Singhvi, the founder of Good Glam Group, says that he's gonna park 25% of his salary, and he's gonna make a trust to clear the dues of the vendors and employees and so on and so forth, because a lot of those people haven't been paid. Now when these people walked out with good salaries while all of this was happening, vendors were not getting paid, people were not getting paid, right? So it's another story like that where it's just gonna sell. Now the conversation is that we cannot have a group solution to this, so we're gonna sell each brand one by one, piece by piece. So whatever we acquired, just like Snapdeal, which acquired, let's say, Free Charge for some $400 million or something, and then it sold just a year later, Free Charge to Axis Bank for $60 million. Similar transactions are gonna happen with Good Clam Group. So that's the news, guys. What do you think about that? CDS backs mobile phone PLI renewal, citing 23% domestic value addition. So viewers of Thinkers Frequency, you know that mobile phone PLI is going out. Production linked incentive scheme. For new viewers of Thinkers Frequency, production linked incentive scheme is a scheme that the government has where it starts paying companies to produce something. They have production linked targets, and if they meet those targets, let's say if you make 100 phones, you're gonna get 1,000 rupees, and so on and so forth. So essentially, each phone or each product or each production outcome is incentivized by the government with real money. Okay, now this has been going on since 2017, when India started working on the smartphone manufacturing bit. So they launched this PLI in 2017, and after 8 years, in 25, the government said, okay, now PLI has done very well, and now we're going to stop PLI in smartphone manufacturing, and we're going to look at PLI in other areas. All right. So these guys are coming out with some data points, and they're trying to convince the government otherwise. They're saying, please don't stop the PLI for we have like 23% domestic value addition right now, and heavy reliance on there's a heavy reliance on imported components, and there's low margin on assembly. So please help us out. But this sounds like a usual drill, right? To keep the money or to save the money, and to keep convince the government to keep at it. You know what Dixon did, right? You know what Dixon did? Viewers of Thinkers Frequency know what Dixon did to handle the newfound change in the policy. Dixon essentially started going vertically integrated. So it started buying some of those component manufacturers, Chinese companies, two Chinese companies which were very hard to pronounce. One of them was Kunshan, and some other was like Yangshan and something like that. I'm sorry, I'm not Chinese. I don't know Mandarin much. So they started going vertically integrated downwards, right? So to improve their margins. But these players are saying some of the data points. It says, even as domestic value addition would direct an increase to 23% to $10 billion for mobile phone, we need the PLI scheme. So they said mobile phone exports surged from, now look at this is beautiful, $0.2 billion, 200 million. 200 million is roughly 1600 crores in 2017-2018. That's when it began, right? 2017-2018, Indian smartphone exports were at 200 million to $24 billion in 2024-2025. $24 billion. That's 12 times, right? Is it 12 times? No, it's not 12 times. 200 million times 10 is 2 billion. 120 times. It's grown 120 times in just 8 years, right? It says that direct DVA increased to domestic value addition increased to 4.6 billion from 1.2 billion in 2018-29. So a lot of good things are happening, but they say that some of cost disabilities that the manufacturing sector is facing, they need to be addressed, and please keep the PLI on. I don't think the government's going to listen to these guys. And even if they do, they're going to reduce it to just a token amount, just so they don't feel unhappy. But the government is not gonna listen to these guys. That's my reading of the situation, because the sector has shown a lot of strength. Mr. Tarun asks, Nishant, have you read about the privatization and IPO of RRBs? I'm sorry, Mr. Tarun, can you tell me about RR? What do you mean by RRBs? I'm missing that abbreviation. If you could just kick it in for me a little. RRBs. So let me just search for them. You can just RRBs meaning. Oh, regional rural banks. Yes, regional rural banks. So we've talked about this, Mr. Tarun, like 40 days ago, where rural banks and small banks were actually looking at going a little big. So not yet privatization. What they're essentially looking at is some sort of pan-India growth. A lot of regional banks are looking at bigger licenses to operate at a bigger scale. And that was very good. So we discussed this, I guess, when did we discuss this? We discussed this like almost 40 days ago. This was the news 40 days ago. So this has been a development. Small finance banks, small rural banks, Grameen banks, they are actually looking at scaling their operations up. So the problem with them, with that is, with this scaling up, with these bigger licenses, come more compliances, but comes better fundraising ability. So that's the trade-off that these people are facing. These people have been operating at a smaller level, but they want to a bigger slice of the bigger action. However, with that comes the compliance troubles, because big banks are really heavily regulated and these guys not so much. So they are looking at some sort of growth there, but no news on that recently, unless I'm missing something. So if you have some intel, some inside information, please let me know. Moving on, smaller cities are powering festive hiring. So smaller cities are looking at hiring. A lot of this country essentially depends on what's going to happen during the festive season, and a lot of companies also are heavily dependent on what happens in this festive season. And what they're looking at right now is growth in tier 2, tier 1, beyond the metros, because that's mostly an untapped market, says Mr. Anil Rai Gupta, who's the managing director of Havels. He says that we expect this market to do a lot of good things. So with this hope, or with this projection, there is happening a lot of small time, or let's say ad hoc hiring, temporary hiring in smaller cities. So 20 to 100% up last year. These people are looking at that. So Mr. Tarun says, thanks. And employees are protesting against the privatization of RRBs. Well, Sarkari employees always, protest against the privatization or something like disinvestment where, private companies get involved. However, it's a very good thing, right? It's a very good thing. Speaking of privatization and banks, I just missed something. Yes Bank's Sumitomo, not Sumimoto, I used to say Sumimoto. Sumitomo acquisition, I'm sorry, stake buying is going ahead at a very big pace. So Yes Bank is looking at 26% from Sumitomo, and that conversation has been developing, but we might just hear the good news sometime very soon. Speaking of good news, we talked about Tilak Nagar Industries, Mansion House guys, buying Imperial Blue, Pyar Ki Ra, that brand, Men Will Be Men, from Pernod Ricard. That transaction happened yesterday. So a lot of, private equity action happening. Moving on, a lot of geopolitical stuff. Direct talks, Russia and Ukraine starts talking in Turkey. But even before the talks, Russian people have said that these talks are not going to yield anything. So a lot of people convince these people to talk, and they are now going to Turkey. So Russian people and Ukrainian people are going to Turkey to have talks. And Russia says these talks are not going to hold anything. So we're talking, but these talks are not going to hold anything. How does that sound to you? Russia has like 20% of Ukraine right now, and it's not wanting to stop. So let's see what happens there. Moving on, some real political stuff happening as far as Japan is considered. So the Prime Minister of Japan lost his majority. People are saying, you got to get out. He's saying, let me just fix a few things and then I'll get out. So very, very complicated Japan matters. But Japan's trade deal with US has been set at a base tariff of 15%. 15% of tariff for Japan. That sounds scary for me, man. Scary for India. Because if India looks at like 19% or 10% and then basically gets parity with Japan, that's going to be a bit of a problem. As far as US and Japan conversation is considered, US has sort of looked at opening the Japanese market. So Trump says the Japanese market is going to get opened up to US automobiles. So he used to say, like in 90s, he used to say, you see a lot of Toyotas and Hondas in US. Do you see Chevys in Japan? No, you don't see any Chevys in Japan. You don't see a lot of Fords in Japan. Now he wants to do that. And he also got like a $500 billion investment from Japan for this trade deal, for this favorable tariff rate set at 15%. So how do you think about that? So $500 billion going to US, while Japanese car market to open in for US companies, and then base tariff set at $550 billion investment deal. Speaking of Japan, they've opened a theme park in Tokyo for Pokemon. So the first of kind Pokemon Tokyo. So Pokemon is a global franchise, right? It's become a very, very big deal, and it was really monetized by Niantic, the Pokemon Go guys. And Pokemon Go guys, Niantic's game division got sold recently. So a lot of action happening as far as Japan is considered, even though the economy is basically declined, right? Economy has declined and not growing at all. However, still some action happening for Japan. Japan couldn't really do anything about the tech industry, right? So Japan had no uh, consumer tech to speak of. They had very good electronics manufacturing. Like I read the biography of Sony, autobiography of the founder of Sony, Akio Morita, and he wrote a great book, Made in Japan. Beautiful book, extraordinary book. And when you look at that era, when you look at Honda, Sony, and other players, right? Even Toyota are older guys, but a lot of players from Japan, they did very well in automotive sector in early 80s, in fact 60s, 70s. Then they moved on to electronics with Sony and Panasonic and all these guys, right? But after 90s, they didn't catch anything in the 2000 2010s space. The tech industry essentially got stagnated. No consumer tech, nothing happened. So that's pretty sad for Japan. They have Rakuten though. Rakuten is basically Amazon of Japan, but nothing big. Even though SoftBank, which is Japanese, the biggest venture capital fund of the world is Japanese, still you didn't see a lot of tech action happening in Japan. Moving on. India taking global risk in its stride with basics in place. State of the economy report by RBI. Well, we know about that. We know about that. We've done that. Yes Bank awaits SMBC's entry for top deck recast. Well, we talked about that. We talked about that. Okay. Banks rush for VRR amid call rate spike. So now viewers of Thinkers Frequency would know this and understand this, but not anybody else because this is complicated. So we know about the VRRs, right? The variable reverse repo, auction basically, which RBI does to suck the liquidity out of the system. You remember that? And RBI had been keeping those VRRs for a very long time and they were getting undersubscribed, right? However, central bank's variable rate repo auction for 50,000 crores were first oversubscribed as banks rushed to borrow at the central bank window amid a spike in overnight trades. So you remember, viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember the business side of lending, where RBI essentially sucks the liquidity out of system by asking banks to park in it for a fee. For an interest. So you park your money here, we'll give you some interest. But banks sometimes don't choose that play. They don't choose the VRR. They choose the overnight repo rate, right? Call rate, essentially. They choose keeping the money amongst each other, right? But those call rate went up, and essentially that made this VRR very, very attractive. So after a long time, RBI's 50,000 crore auction got oversubscribed. If you remember, RBI kept 3 of such auctions before, and all of them were undersubscribed by half. But these are temporary liquidity management techniques. It's called liquidity adjustment facility, which we talked about. Not many people can even understand this, but it's sort of smart, very smart, intelligent. So liquidity infusion via VRR auction, overnight rates softened slightly, but they were still above the standard deposit facility, the SDF. So that was that. Moving on. Infosys CEO says AI driving 5 to 15% productivity gains right now. The goal is to go for 85%, which the Tech Mahindra CEO said was a pipe dream. It was a dangerous fantasy. But AI productivity gains basically mean one thing, basically means less jobs from the IT sector, which basically means decoupling of the IT industry from the Indian job market, essentially, right? Rare earth scene, okay. Government is also partnering with the World Economic Forum, WEF, essentially, for the skill development initiative. It's going to get everybody involved. You know about the ITI. We discussed about the ITI, and World Economic Forum is also going to get involved in the skill development initiative. Speaking of some developments, United Breweries has an interesting conundrum. People are buying a lot of cans of beer and not bottles. Somehow, consumers have preferred cans and not the bottles of beer, which has led to an aluminium shortage for cans, because aluminium production is limited and that is sort of rationed. So that is rationed to the beer companies as well. It's not like they have an unlimited supply of cans of aluminium. So that's basically led to some problems as far as the supply of cans is considered for the beer companies and for United Breweries especially. So they have lost like 1 to 2 percentage points of growth over the last 6 months due to the can shortage. Now, how interesting is that? Was there a way to predict this? Could we have predicted this? But how is this possible? Because US laid tariffs on Indian exports of aluminium, right? So India used to export like almost $1 billion worth aluminium to US, and that is not happening. That is sort of stopped or slowed down a little. That should have led to overcapacity of aluminium in India, which should have led to ease for a can play, right? But maybe it's using that aluminium to make cans, which is the bottleneck. Something is missing here. The story is slightly more complicated than it seems on the surface. Don't you think? Does certainly feels like that to me. Moving on. Telco, there was also a study that glass bottles have more microplastic than plastic bottles. What? Really? Glass bottles having more microplastic than plastic bottles, says Mr. Tarun. Well, I have to confirm that. That doesn't sound logical to me, personally, but I'll read about it. I'll definitely read about it. Moving on. Tar growth is hitting a plateau due to the cap paints. Okay. Cap paints. Oh, but the cap is of metal and then there's rubber. Are you saying that sounds interesting. Let me read about that, Mr. Tarun, and get back to you tomorrow. Moving on. Tar growth may hit plateau as 5G nears completion. So Indian tar industry is very interesting. There is the number one tar player in India is Brookfield. Basically, India's 800 telecom tars in India. India is the second largest tar market after China. About 2.7 lakh are run by Brookfield backed Altius Telecom. 2.75 lakh tars run by Altius. Then 2.5 run by Bharti, essentially, which is owned by, Industars. A Bharti company owns 2.5 lakh of such tars. So tar growth is gonna look at some sort of plateauing because Jio and Bharti have already done, the expansion for 4G and 5G. What's left is Vodafone. So they're gonna, whatever their requirement is not gonna feed the monkey. So that's 5G has neared completion. Just Vodafone is remaining. That's sort of bad news for the telco players. Also, Industar, essentially, the Bharti company, has heavily been reliant on Vodafone. And the reason why Mr. Sunil Bharti has been praying that Vodafone works is because if Vodafone went down, it won't be able to pay its dues to Industars, which is his company. So he's like, please live on. Please don't die, because I don't want IndusInd to die. And with that, we, I guess, have come to the end of the 60th episode of Thinker's Frequency. A heavy mental workout, a great dose of insights and analysis which don't lead to paralysis right before we punch in. It's 9:06. We're gonna punch in a few minutes. I hope you have a beautiful day, personally and professionally. I'll see you tomorrow, same place, same time. Thank you so much. I had a lovely time talking. Mr. Patil, Mr. Tiwari, Mr. Tarun, Mr. Ohlan, Mr. Jindal, everybody. Have a beautiful day. See you. Bye-bye.